So your hips are feeling tight. You made it to the right class. Today we're going to be going through a mini Kinstretch class. Kinstretch is the method that we're going to be using to loosen up your hips. What makes it different from other things that you may have tried is we are both going to stretch and strengthen. So we're going to improve your range of motion, but we're also going to improve your strength and control of that range. Why does that matter? What is tightest is often the weakest. This is something that's really important to remember. If you have tight hips, that means that you will probably also have weak hips in certain areas. So we're going to work on both these things at one time so that you can walk away from this class feeling your best. Let's get started. Find a comfortable spot on the floor, and we're going to start by warming up the hips. We're going to start in this 90-90 position, focusing on the trail leg, this back one right here. So you're going to make sure that knee is lined up with the center of your hip and your heel is lined up with your knee, creating that 90-degree angle. We're going to keep our chest facing forward. And then what we're going to do to warm up the hip is you're going to hinge, opening up that back leg, picking the knee up off the ground. We're going to get a great squeeze in the side of the hip right here. Hold for a couple seconds and set it back down. Same thing again. Open that up, hold for a couple seconds, and set it back down. We're going to do that 4 more times. Open, squeeze. Can you try to open that knee up a little bit more, get it a little bit higher without your chest turning? So we're keeping it completely in the hip and set it back down. And again, hold, squeeze, fight for that height. How high can you go? Set down. 2 more. Open, squeeze, fight for the height, down. Last one. Open, squeeze, fight for the height. How high can you go? Keep holding and down. So we should already feel like we're getting some warmth and activation into the side of the hip right here. Let's go ahead and do the other side. Setting up in our 90-90. Knee is lined up with the center of the hip. Heel is lined up with the knee. Chest is facing forward. Tall torso. Pick the knee up as high as you can. Squeeze and fight for the height. And set it back down. What's great about this warm-up is you can feel we're strengthening the hip already, even in our warm-up. So as much as a warm-up is intended, that we want to bring blood flow to the joint, we want to warm it up, right? Make it feel ready to do some work. But why not put a little bit more value into our warm-ups? Instead of the warm-up only warming up the joint, why not have our warm-up actually make the joint healthier by making it stronger? That's what we're doing here. Picking that knee up, hold, 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 and down, and 1 more. Pick the knee up, hold, squeeze, fight for the height. How high can you get the knee? Keep fighting, and set it down. Beautiful. We're ready to go. Next, we're going to come into the portion of the class. We're going to do 1 long hold stretch. Today, we're going to be doing frog stretch to open up our hips. This is going to be stretching our inner thighs. We also are going to be strengthening our outer hips. You're going to go ahead and make sure your knees are lined up with your hip before sliding them out into your frog, placing your elbows on the ground. We're going to take a second here and just make sure you're comfy. You can kind of wiggle around, get those knees pulled out. Maybe you have to push into your hands and push your hips back a little bit. You're going to notice that the more you push your hips backwards, the stronger the stretch is going to become inside that inner leg. Now we're just going to do some deep breathing into this stretch. What's really important that we need to know there's a stretch reflex in the body that starts to relax at about the 2-minute mark. The research is incredibly consistent with this. We're not entirely sure why yet, but what we know when researched is that if we hold a stretch for about 2 minutes, the stretch reflex starts to relax. That means that your central nervous system starts to think, I am safe in this stretch. I don't need to grasp. I don't need to hold on as much. And it lets the muscles begin to relax a little bit more. So when we're just sitting in a stretch for 2 minutes and doing some deep breathing over the course of 6 months, it's amazing how much more range you get compared to if you sit in the stretch for, say, 30 seconds. So that is why we're doing this for the full 2 minutes. Now, we've already been in the stretch for about 1 minute and 15 seconds. So we're just going to keep deep breathing here. I want you to take really deep inhales and long exhales. Regular inhale and a long exhale. Regular inhale and a long exhale. Now, we're about ready to start a strengthening portion of this. What you're going to do is imagine you're trying to pinch the floor with your knees. Like you're going to do this, but the floor is in the way. Your knees aren't actually going to come in. What that's going to do is activate all of the tissue that is being stretched. This is a very important portion to loosening up your hips, is getting that activation and that strength in there. Ready? Let's go ahead. Start pinching the floor with your knees. Imagining your knees are coming in closer together, but the floor is in the way, so they're not actually going to touch. We now feel activation into that inner thigh. All the stuff that was just being stretched is now being strengthened. And go ahead and relax the contraction and see, after that contraction, can you pull your knees slightly farther apart? You're going to feel your outer hips contract as you're trying to pull your knees wider apart from each other and relax. Take a couple deep breaths here. We may have found a little bit of new range. Even millimeters counts. Millimeters adds up a lot over a lot of weeks, months, time of doing this. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this one more time. Ready? Go ahead and start pinching the floor with your knees. And we're going to see, can we ramp this up a little bit more? Can we pinch the floor a little bit harder than you did last time around? And even a little bit harder. And even a little bit harder. And even just a little bit more. How hard can you possibly squeeze? 3, 2, 1. Relax. And last time, you're going to go ahead and try to pull your knees farther apart. Can you get them wider? Squeezing that outer hip. And relax. One deep breath. And we can go ahead and come out of that stretch. Go ahead and take a breath here. We call that a pails and rails set, where we both do the stretching and the strengthening in one position. And in Kinstretch, this is what makes the biggest difference. This is how we gain a lot of range, make our hips stronger, and therefore make our hips feel significantly less tight, because what is the tightest is often the weakest. So let's go into the final part of this class, which is going to be our last little bit of strengthening. We're going to come back into our 90-90, the same position that we started in. And again, we're going to be focusing on this trail leg right here. As a reminder, the knee is lined up with the center of the hip. The heel is lined up with the knee. For this particular exercise, your kickstand hand, the closer it is to your hip, the harder it's going to be. If we put that hand farther out, this is going to be easier. Elbow on the ground is the easiest. Hardest is right here. So you can go ahead and pick your own difficulty level as we go through this final strengthening exercise. It's going to make your hips feel so good. Here's what it's going to look like. We're going to lift that whole leg. We can get a really good squeeze right here. And we're going to slowly set it back down on the ground. Now, if you just did that and this happened, elbow bent, whole torso moved, I want you to put your hand farther out. Our goal is to find a spot where we can lift with the torso staying completely still. That means we're using no momentum and actually building strength into the hip. So if you find that you're getting that elbow bending and torso moving, move your hand farther out, find a spot that you can lift from where you do not move. Ready? We're going to go for 6 reps here. Go ahead, lift, hold, set down. Lift, hold, set down. Lift, hold. As we're setting down, we're doing little ninja taps. We're not flopping onto the floor. The control is important for building the strength. Lift, hold strong, gently set down. Lift, hold, set down. Last one, lift, hold, and down. All right, let's go ahead and flip over to the other side here. Same thing. We're going to have that knee lined up with the center of the hip, heel lined up with the center of the knee. Lift, hold, set down. It might be different from side to side. This side might be easier, side might be harder. No such thing as a completely symmetrical body. So again, double check. Are you bending the elbow? Remember, if your elbow starts to bend, if your torso starts to move that hand farther out so that you can be really strict. Keep it directly in the hip instead of the torso. You're going to get so much more out of the exercise that way. Lift, hold, gently set down. Another thing we can notice is when you lift and set down, is that knee moving forward? This is really common. If that knee starts to move forward, you're actually taking it out of some of the important hip muscles on this side. That's your body unintentionally, subconsciously, trying to make it easier on you. What you can do is grab a yoga block, a thick book, any object really, put it right in front of your knee. So as you lift, you know that you have to keep that really strict. Now you don't have the option. You're going to have to set down in that straight line. Lift, hold, gently set down. Lift, hold, gently set down. Lift, hold, gently set down. Amazing. Do your hips feel like they worked? Let me know in the comments below, because good mobility training is strength training for your joints. That is the difference between mobility training that in 6 months from now, you're going to feel like a completely different person, a completely different body, or if you're stuck in the same cycle of, I feel tight, so I stretch, so I feel a little bit better, I go to bed, I feel tight again. So I stretch, so I feel a little bit better, I go to bed, and I feel tight again. Do you want to be in that cycle, or do you want to feel like a completely different person in 6 months? If so, Kinstretch is the answer for you so that you can strengthen along with your stretching. And this is how we create real, lasting change. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit like. It really helps in this algorithm world. And hit subscribe to be able to get a mobility walkthrough just like this every single week.